What is going on, guys? How you guys doing? I hope you guys are staying safe and sound during this holiday season and you're not stuffing yourselves up too much. Now, speaking of stuffing, did you guys eat today? More than likely you did. And you had some type of incorporation of meat in your diet. Now, what if I told you the overconsumption of eating meat is actually killing you and shaving years out of your life? Not 5, not 10, but possibly 15 years. Now, some of the longest living animals on the planet, as well as strongest, don't even consume meat. Why would I make such an outlandish claim? And what isn't the industry telling you? Stay tuned. Let's find out. Now, before we get into the whole debate as in why the overconsumption of meat is actually harmful to the human body and is killing you, let's tackle the first question. Why do we eat meat in the first place? Energy, protein, and taste? Let's tackle these questions first before we dive deeper into why the overconsumption of meat is really poor for your health. For a long time, we've been told that if you don't eat meat or enough of it, you won't have energy or strength to do much. But what if I told you that you've been lied to? Meat or protein derived from meat isn't what gives you energy. Energy actually comes from carbohydrates in the form of glycogen, which is stored in our muscles. It's crazy how outdated our ideas of nutrition are even to this day. But where did the idea of meat giving you energy come from in the first place? In the 1890s, the USDA recommended over 110 grams of dietary protein per day for the working man. This was based off of German chemist Justus von Biggie's idea that protein was the source of muscular energy, and the best way to get it was from meat. Justus even went as far as to hypothesize that muscular energy came from animal protein and that vegetarians were incapable of prolonged exercise. This was later proven to be a falsehood, but it still lingers to this day. But wait, hold up. We're missing one of the most crucial part of this whole equation. You see, we can't talk about energy without mentioning B12. It's been the #1 vegan/vegetarian demoralizer because of its deficiency factor and lack of in those types of diets. For years, we've been told that meat is the best source for B12. But what is B12? Vitamin B12 is an essential vitamin and nutrient that help keep the nerve and blood cells healthy. We need it to make fatty and amino acids and to replicate and repair DNA, the genetic material for all cell life. Vitamin B12 also helps prevent a type of anemia called megaloblastic anemia, which makes people tired and weak. Well, this is interesting. Because if animal products are the only source of B12, how do herbivores survive? Well, it turns out animals aren't the true source of B12. Yet again, they're the middle person in this whole equation. You see, the real magic and secret lies in their guts. Vegetarian animals house bacteria in their intestines that make the B12 for them. This is seen as the perfect symbiosis, where herbivores provide a steady supply of food and a place to stay. In return, the bacteria excretes B12 that the herbivores then absorb. So what went wrong with us? Because the same bacteria that excretes B12 resides within us. Did someone or something tamper with our gastrointestinal tract? You see, the problem is the bacteria that's nice enough to create this crucial vitamin for us reside largely within our large intestine, but we're only capable of absorbing in our small intestine. And because the small intestine comes before the large, we end up sending the B12 that our gut bacteria produces right out the door, rather than absorbing it. Kind of a waste, right? And speaking of waste, studies show that human fecal matter is an adequate dietary source of vitamin B12. But come on, who's gonna eat their own shit? I refuse to believe that this was the original design, because most primates are herbivores.
And indeed, all of our fellow apes survived on a fully or mostly plant-based diet. More than likely, we descended from a long lineage of vegetarians. During the millions of years of our ancestors thriving on plants, they were surely able to capture the vitamin B12 that was being made by the bacteria in their guts, or else they wouldn't be able to survive. So, once our ancestors began scavenging meat and bone marrow, they found themselves with a steady supply of vitamin B12, which then grew in abundance when they started hunting. It's hard to really pinpoint, but it must have been during this meat-eating stage in our evolution that we began to absorb B12 in the small intestine instead of the large one, creating this weird mix-up and throwing off the original design that we had before, making humans, at least in a narrow sense, obligated carnivores. You know what though? That's the beauty of evolution. It's forever changing for better or worse. And our current relationship with B12 is yet another example of this. But there's a bigger issue with B12 and how we're currently getting it. Due to the increase in industrial farming and its major use of pesticides, antibiotics, and chlorine, these bacteria, nutrients, and crucial elements are being destroyed, resulting in livestock now having to be given B12. All livestock, including sheep, cattle, and goats, are also required cobalt in their diet for the synthesis of vitamin B12. The lack of cobalt in the soils can cause vitamin B12 deficiencies, which poses the question, if they're now injecting farm animals with B12, why go through the whole process? Why not just cut out the middle person and take B12 supplements? So this settles the excuse of meat giving you energy. That's out the window. But what about protein?
Now, protein. Where do you get your protein from? One of the most frequent asked questions for vegans and vegetarians, which I know is very frustrating, they frequently get asked, where do you get your protein? Now, what if I told you animals are actually the middleman in this whole process, and that protein, all protein, derives from plants, and vegans and vegetarians are not protein deficient? Now, I've been in a car accident, and it's been over a year. I have not been able to train or work out. And do I look like I'm protein deficient? I've been able to maintain muscle mass in my size purely based on a plant diet. And let's break all these myths and misconceptions right now.
Protein. Man, the obsession with protein has skyrocketed over the years, but there's good reason for that. So let's break it down. Chemically, protein is composed of amino acids, which are organic compounds made of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, or sulfur. The majority of amino acids we require are actually synthesized in our bodies without any dietary intervention. Of the 20 amino acids that make up protein, the body can produce 11. The other 9, the essentials, need to be outsourced from our food. Each gram of protein contains about 4 calories. Protein makes up about 15% of a person's body weight. And it's not just from muscle. Every cell in the human body contains protein. Everything, I mean from skin, organs, blood, hair, and even your fingernails. Protein is also essential for growth and development, especially in children, teens, and pregnant women. Now, this isn't about whether you can get protein from meat or plants. That's irrelevant because I've already shown that you can get proper dietary protein from plants. I'm a living testimony of this, as well as other vegans and vegetarians. This is about quality and what the actual protein from meat is packaged with, because believe it or not, when you consume large amounts of meat or meat in general, you're getting a lot more than you bargained for. And this is where the true danger lies. Man, the amount of bacteria, compounds, and molecules that meat harbor is ridiculous. So I'm only going to be focusing on 2 in this video. So we're going to do things a little different. In terms of cause and effect, we're going to focus on the effect. Bear with me. The effect here is inflammation. Now, inflammation is an immune response to a perceived threat. But what's the body attacking? At first, scientists thought it might be animal protein, which is the actual culprit. They discovered that after a meal of animal products, one's bloodstream becomes so soiled with bacterial toxins known as endotoxins. Now, this is where the cause is, the endotoxins. And endotoxins are nothing to play with. They can lead to anaphylactic shock and even death. Just to show you how lethal endotoxins can be, we're going to use an illustration. So, for example, let's use a fresh hamburger. Did you know a fresh hamburger contains approximately 100 million bacteria per quarter pounder? Now, I know what you're saying. It doesn't matter because you're going to cook it, and that takes care of the problem because by cooking, we're going to eliminate the bacteria. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you kill the bacteria or not. Dead or alive, the endotoxins are still going to be there. You can fry, bake, boil for hours. Endotoxins have been shown to be resistant to typical cooking times and temperatures. Even our own digestive enzymes can't get rid of them. And to make it worse, it's shown that animal fat actually helps in the absorption of endotoxins. Now, ironically, plant-based protein does the opposite effect. It actually has anti-inflammatory properties, which helps combat inflammation. The next cause and deadly compound is trimethylamine N oxide, abbreviation TMAO. Trimethylamine N oxide is a small organic compound in the class of amine oxides. Researchers found that people with higher levels of TMAO in their blood may have more than twice the risk of heart attacks, strokes, other serious cardiovascular problems, or even death compared with people who have lower levels, even if you have good cholesterol levels. There's substantial evidence associating elevated TMAO with cardiovascular disease. And speaking of cardiovascular disease, heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States, according to the American Heart Association. So if humans were meant to eat meat, why do meat eaters have a 32% higher risk of developing heart disease than vegetarians?
Taste. We're finally down to taste. So here's the truth. When it comes to taste, some meat tastes good, most don't. It really boils down to a few things. Your upbringing, your culture, the actual texture of the meat, and your emotional responses. So let's be honest with each other. What about meat appeals most to you? Let's take burgers for example. What's your favorite thing about a burger? Is it the fattiness, the salt, or the sugary compliments? Burgers aren't your thing? Fine. What about chicken or steak? How do you like those best prepared? Would you eat them raw? What if I told you, for the most part, your favorite thing about meat isn't the actual meat itself, but what complements it? You don't believe me? Fine. What differentiates Italian cuisine from French? Or Mexican from Japanese? Is it the meat? You see, these dishes, along with other ethnic dishes, are packed with flavor, and they don't rely on meat to make them taste delicious.
Our hunger and overconsumption of meat is destroying the environment and damaging our health. Did you know that 45% of the land surface of Earth is used just for the growing of crops to feed and raise livestock? If this doesn't disturb you, I don't know what else will.
Now, you guys do understand these are billion-dollar industries. They're gonna have their own research, they're gonna be funding their own scientists, and they're gonna create their own fallacies to just muddy the water and create confusion, because telling people that meat or the overconsumption of meat and dairy are harmful and is actually killing them, it's bad for business. Look, these people don't care about your health. They care about your pockets and making a profit. Now, I'm not even telling you to stop eating meat. I'm just saying to lower your consumption. Did you know if you replaced one serving of meat with an extra serving of vegetables a day, that we could prevent over 20,000 cancer deaths a year? So I'm a firm believer in making your food your medicine and your medicine your food. And ultimately, your health is your responsibility. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and you already know how the jazz works on here with YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.